Hey there everyone, thank you so much for joining me. Here we are with yet another video series in which I'll be playing a blue-white based control, calling it a budget deck, through a standard league online. So glad you could be here. I made a couple of cuts to the deck and a few additions that I'm very excited to go over super quick, and we're going to run them through a league, and with any luck we will do as well as we did last time, and hopefully they'll be up to the standard. So with Aetherworks Marvel being banned from the format, I would expect a couple of decks that are already on top to continue their reign, and a couple of decks to make a resurgence, and others to crop up ever so slightly to the forefront of the metagame. I would expect that blue-red based control decks, black-green energy and delirium decks, teamer mid-range decks, very especially popular there, and couple of odd brews here and there, and also Mardu vehicles, which I believe that our initial incarnation of this deck was somewhat weak to, so I've made a couple of revisions with mostly that in mind, namely in bringing in an Aether Meltdown. Pretty solid card. For only 2 mana we can flash it in on our turn or our opponent's and enchant a creature or vehicle, giving it -4 to its power. So this will do a very nice job of neutering things like a Scrapheap Scrounger, Hearts of Kirin, a lot of other creatures, especially early ones, that would give us trouble and we would try and deal with an Immolating Glare. This does the same thing, and we can sometimes use our mana more effectively. Notably, though, it does still miss things like Tireless Tracker, and even like Long Tusk Cub can very quickly be pumped out of its reach. So we do have to keep in mind not to shed too many of our answers to other creatures like that. But we are also trimming one Disallow, replacing it with a Stasis Snare. Nice being able to basically cast a cheaper version of Cast Out to deal with things like Tireless Tracker or Glory Bringer or something like that before it gets a chance to swing at us. So I like bringing in another one of those. Essence Scatter for the same reason, being able to deal with those creatures before they even hit the board, while also answering things like a God or other problematic creature like a Hydra. Nice having answers to it before it even hits the table. Aside from that, not many changes to our draw package. We added a Fumigate. I just thought it was one of the best cards that we could draw in many games against aggressive and mid-range decks, and especially with Marvel being banned, I would expect to see lots more teamer mid-range and black-green big creatures make an appearance. So 3 Fumigates, actually with a 4th in the sideboard. I'll get to that in a second. And then finally, the 2 that I'm very excited about are Quarantine Field and Blighted Cataract. So we were playing Westvale Abbeys, and they weren't really pulling their weight, I felt. It's just very difficult to be able to pump out a reliable stream of tokens. And in every case where we had a Westvale Abbey, I think we'd just be better served being able to crack it for a couple of extra cards. So we replaced those with the Cataracts, placed a couple of our port towns with just basic lands because they kind of cannibalize slots from each other. Prairie streams don't work too well with port towns, especially later in the game. Port towns coming into play tapped for the most part, so I think we can do just fine playing some basics in their place. And then finally, Quarantine Field, almost as powerful as a Pull from Tomorrow late game. Pull being able to restock your hand full of answers with unlimited mana. Quarantine Field basically is that answer. With enough mana, you can wipe the board full of permanents, whatever they are. Planeswalkers, artifacts, creatures, enchantments even. Our opponents' cast outs and stasis snares, eating our creatures, their gods, anything short of a man land, you can pretty much deal with a Quarantine Field. And even if you have to pay it 4 mana to exile a single permanent, that's not much worse of a card than a cast out. So I'm very excited to see how this performs. Aside from that, some minor changes to the sideboard, bringing in the 4th Fumigate against anything aggressive or mid-range, keeping all of our counter spells and our creature package that we can side into, keeping the Jace and the Sphinx because they're just so good against any control deck, any blue-based deck really. And then finally, Shielded Aether Thieves and Dovin Baan. Not really sure how these are going to perform, but I'd say it's a good time to give them a shot. Aether Thieves come in against anything aggressive, but not too big. Things like Hydras, Long Tusk Cubs, Glory Bringers obviously make quick work of little 0/4s, but they are nice against zombies and aggressive decks, being able to just flash them in and continuously block, and they can even replace themselves by drawing some cards. The only energy synergy that we have are resolving Glimmers of Genius and then blocking once or twice with them, but that's pretty good. If you can curve this into like a counter and a Glimmer, then him blocking one time and then the Glimmer of Genius gives you enough energy to, at the very least, replace himself. So, interested in seeing how they do. Quick shout out to Gabriel Nassif, a Pro Tour winner of years before my time, who, watching his stream, playing a very similar deck using Gear Hulks, then unfortunately can't stand with him quite in that regard, but he keyed me into the usefulness of these Aether Thieves as well as the Aether Meltdown as well. So I have him to thank for those. Hopefully they are as good for me as they appear to be for him. And then finally, Dovin Baan. Not too sold on this guy yet, but I want to give him a shot. For a very, very inexpensive Planeswalker, he certainly seems to do what is needed of him. He can shut down a creature. That plus ability is very nifty at turning off things like the Hydra before it can get hexproof. They have to actually use their hexproof ability that turn. If they only have one activation, that can be a real game changer for them. And especially against things like Selfless Spirit, you can just plus, and if you have like a Fumigate in hand, then they're kind of torn between do you have it or do you not. They have to sack it then and there to get the indestructibility, and if you don't have it, you just wipe their creature for no reason, and if you do have it and they don't sacrifice, then you get to wipe their board. So I'm very interested in trying this guy out for that reason mostly, and then finally he can just turn into repeatable card draw and life gain against the aggressive decks. I'm not too sure that we're going to get that emblem anytime soon, but I just wish this guy came in with like one more loyalty so you could pump him out of reach of a Glorybringer or something like that. But even so, if you do get that emblem, it is very difficult to lose, I feel. Opponent being able to really only cast like one spell, maybe two every other turn or so. So we'll see how he does. I imagine we'll be bringing him in against pretty much any control deck or hyper aggressive deck on the play. Probably not able to play mostly do nothing card on turn 4, but we'll see. So that is the deck, all the changes that we have made, and we're going to run it through a league and see how it does. Stay tuned, everyone. Hello everyone, and welcome back. Here we are with more blue-white control action. On the draw here, I think we've got a relatively keepable hand. A couple of early interactive spells, a Gisela to finish things off maybe. See what we're up against exactly. I guess there's an off chance against a control deck. We're probably more likely to want to cycle a cast out than a censor. I'm just guessing that this could be blue-red control, but also possible, I guess it could be that zombie graveyard deck. So actually going to hold on to the cast out for a little bit longer. Not the best hand for dealing with either matchup. Leaning more towards the control route here. So if that is the case, then maybe we can actually cycle this cast out. See if we can find like Dissolves, Glimmer of Genius, that's a great one. I very much doubt we're going to be able to play Gisela on turn 4, but we'll see. Cycling a Sweltering Sun, so that is definitely a blue-red control deck. Alright, I think we can hang on to this Censor for now. I do want to just draw Disallows and Negates if possible. I think we're in a somewhat decent spot against a deck like this, though. Just want to keep hitting our land drops. That's a decent one. I think we're going to... Not in any rush, really, to play this Glimmer. We've got land drops for a couple turns longer, so I think I want to have 5 untapped mana so that we can Disallow and Censor if need be. Opponent might go for like an end-of-turn Glimmer here. So yeah, we're going to want to Disallow that. And then this way, if they try to just force through a Gear Hulk, we're able to at least fight it with a Censor. I'm not sure that they will do that, but we'll see what happens. Looks like no. They do not wish to party just yet. Disallow of their own. Now is probably the best time to force a fight if they want to go for a Gear Hulk. We have a Censor for it, so I will actually go ahead and try and Glimmer here. And then this way, if they go for the Gear Hulk in response, we can fight it. They may just Disallow though, so we'll see what our opponent feels like doing. Just a Negate. Okay, that's fine. Have to fight through that at one point. Ooh, if they're going for another Glimmer here, then we can absolutely fight it. Does leave us exposed to a Gear Hulk, but we were pretty much going to lose that fight anyway. We are tapped out now, so hopefully our opponent maybe just like plays a Kefnet or something. We can Declaration in stone, but more likely, yeah, the Gear Hulk. And now they get to draw back up to 4 cards. Probably going to have to declare this in stone and then play a Gisela, giving them another card off the declaration, but better than the quick death from Gear Hulk there. Let's just go ahead and play her. She's probably going to get Harnessed, Lightninged, or Sweltering Suns, but let's see what our opponent has to say. Definitely losing so far. Yeah, there's a Harnessed Lightning. To be expected. Opponent just passes, then okay. Probably going to end up cycling this farmland. We have to find more counters or a Bruna or pull from tomorrow, something like that. We are very much at a disadvantage here, but if our opponent's out of gas too, then not in the worst of shape. We'll go ahead and cycle this. We got the answer to the Fumarole, fortunately, although I doubt they're going to activate it anytime soon. And a Negate. Things could be worse. Got protection for a little bit now. It's another Gear Hulk. That's bad. They go for a Glimmer. I think we do kind of have to fight that. And that is what they're doing. So I think, yeah, hopefully we don't get countered right back, but we can't really afford to let them draw cards when we've got nothing. They may just have another Negate of their own, and they do. So it looks like our draw has matched up fairly poorly against theirs. Not nearly enough. Well, also they have Gear Hulk, which is certainly better in the control mirror than Gisela. Probably not winning game 1. There's always game 2 and maybe 3 to look forward to, though. Opponent now sees that we are out of cards, so they're free to do as they wish. Essence Scatter would be nice for the next Gear Hulk, but now they can just start beating us down with Wandering Fumaroles, cycling their Censors. I wouldn't be surprised if they come in with at least 1 this turn. They don't even have to tap too low, and they can start pummeling us for 4, unfortunately. So what are we hoping to draw? Bruna maybe? Fumigate, pretty awful here. Coming in again. So we've got maybe 2 more turns to find an answer, preferably a draw spell, which gives us lots of answers. If our opponent stops playing lands, then they've probably got the game on lockdown, enough counters to go around. We're not really finding any action here. But that's alright. We'll be moving on to game 2 in a moment, I think. Certainly at a disadvantage game 1, I think. Torrential Gear Hulks and Man Lands are significantly more threatening than our Angel package. Kefnet main deck, speak of the Kefnet, is quite good, but here they can just attack us with both. It's very unlikely we'll be able to, yeah, especially if they have a Essence Scatter. It would have been very unlikely we could have drawn into anything. There's no way we were going to be able to block with Kefnet. Not nearly enough cards in hand. So if they attack with the second one, then they've got it. Playing a little conservatively. Alright, we need our opponent to not have anything in hand and to draw Bruna, which we did not do. So let's just go ahead and move on to game 2. Alright, counters to fight. Jace is good, Sphinx, Lancers maybe to find Kefnet and Angels. They know about Gisela, but maybe not about Bruna. Kind of like bringing in Planeswalkers, but Dovin Baan is not even the best against a matchup like this, but we'll give him a shot. Things we don't need: Declaration in Stone, Fumigates. Guess we do want to keep the Scatter just as another way to fight a Gear Hulk. Stasis Snare does hit lands, whereas Cast Out does not, but if they have Planeswalkers, I'm going to wish we had the Cast Out still. We can trim them for now. And maybe a Quarantine Field. How does this look? Aether Thieves can't block the Wandering Fumaroles, or else they would be in here in a heartbeat. Without any way to generate energy behind the beyond the Glimmers of Genius. These guys aren't really going to do much, unfortunately. Linvala, probably the only other thing to bring in, but I think we can do without her. Alright, I think here we're actually going to take the draw, because it will likely come down to who has more cards when you get to that pivotal counter war. With cards like Dovin Baan and Jace and Kefnet, do kind of want to be on the play. Get them down early. I think we can take the draw though, safely. Oh, Aether Meltdown we could probably do without, or replace that with a Linvala, I think. Can always tutor her up. She blocks Fumarolls, she gains life when we're kind of low. Doesn't match up too well against Gearhulk, of course. Play first. Let's take the draw, actually. See if that is correct. Alright, 3 lands, some interaction, and a draw spell. Not much to do with this Bruna, unfortunately, but I think we can keep it. We'll keep. See what our opponent's got for us. Okay. Hoping to draw negates, lands, things like that. Oh, alright, well, hopefully they attack us with that. Not sure that they will, but if they do, we've got the answers to it. And if not, then we've got plenty of time. But I probably will end up bringing in... ooh, are they out of lands now? That's one of the reasons we wanted to take the draw here. If they fall behind on lands, then they're in a lot of trouble. There they go. And of course, they're being smart, not attacking in. It's just not worth the 1 point of damage here or there. But if they get stuck on lands for a bit longer, then I think we'll be heavily favored here. Here, they are stuck on lands. I like Censor a lot, so I guess we might as well hang on to it. Oh, I would love to resolve a Jace here, but Censor, Disallow, Negate, too many things they could have. They still miss on lands, and they have to discard, then we are in great shape here. Gonna start cycling Censor because we do want to hit that 6th land so we could force a Glimmer through. There we go. Opponent's just gonna discard like harness. Ooh, pull from tomorrow. Okay. So yeah, this might end up being a kind of a non-game here. We've got heavier threats coming, and our opponent's just stuck on nothing. Dragon Master doesn't do anything when you have no lands and you don't attack with them. Just Glimmer, get the counters out, and then we get to play a Planeswalker. Okay, they're not even going to bother representing a counter or fighting over it with like a Dispel or something. So if we are on the draw, and we draw 2 here, we'll be at 9 cards. So we'd have to play a land and a walker. That does sound enticing. So I think I will take the basic and the Disallow. And now, opponent's still discarding Gearhulks and the like, that's fine. Now I think we just force a Jace through. If they counter it, that's fine. Tap correctly. We'll fight back. We're not really exposed to anything. Like the best they could do is top deck a land and then Glimmer, and even then that's not bad. We've got a Planeswalker. So we'll just fight that. We get a Jace and they scoop. Alright, so kind of unfortunate. Opponent got screwed there on the play with a Dragon Master. That is good to know about though. Kind of want to bring the cast outs back. Can cycle them if we don't need them, and we can deal with Dragon Master since our opponent is obviously not going to attack us. On the draw, we can probably cut the Dovin Baans, bring in all the cast outs. Let's try that. Alright, hopefully we get a real game here. Not the best hand, a bunch of counters and 2 of our big threats, but I think it's definitely keepable when our opponent is taking a cue from us and taking the draw here. That's maybe going to work out in our favor. If they don't have an untapped 2 lands, we can force a Kefnet through. And once we have Kefnet, they're at a big, big disadvantage. So if they play a tap, no, okay. Unfortunate. So the question is, do we play Kefnet into a Censor or Essence Scatter, or do we give them a turn to maybe have Disallow up? I think they would have played like a second blue source to get Disallow at the ready, so they do have a 2-mana counterspell. So we can probably play around that. Probably a Censor. And now they do have double blue, sadly for us. Just gonna cycle Censor away. Yeah, the second one too. Okay, finding a Jace. I would love to get this Kefnet through, but he's probably just gonna get countered now. Opponent cycling Censors of their own, or Hieroglyphic. That's curious. I think they would want to wait and cast that unless they are stuck on 3 lands. Perhaps not. Alright, here I'm going to try and pull for just 2. I know it's not the best, but we really just want to get Kefnet down, and if this baits out a counterspell, then that's better. I'm going to cut the Gisela. We're not going to play her for a long time, and I think I'd rather wait until we draw a Bruna. Play her that way. Alright. Maybe one more turn before we start thinking about fighting over something here. If they go for a Glimmer, then they're on the draw, so they're going to have to discard. I think I'm okay letting this through. Bottom top, so probably just finding lands to play. Only 2 blue sources, one of them being an Aether hub. Let's see what they've got. I will try and fight a Kefnet through if we find an untapped source. Unfortunately, we have not. And there they go, discarding their Essence Scatter. Okay. They might regret that. I'm going to try and jam a Kefnet in there, because if he sticks, then we just draw cards for the rest of the game and put the onus on our opponent to act. Here, if they only have a Disallow, another Essence Scatter, I think it is worth fighting. Even if they get a Gear Hulk off, I think I'd rather have Kefnet down. They could just commit him back to our hand, though. So we'll see what they got. Gear Hulk. Yeah, that's a Gear Hulk. Alright. Oh, they're going to take him. Okay. We've been through this before, I think in one of my series. Ooh, we could also, next turn, play a Sphinx. That's nice. But here, we are definitely going to bounce that back to hand. And now, our opponent has to deal with the Jace. If they do, then we get the Sphinx, and we're in a pretty good spot there. We might not actually need this farmland. I love playing lands every turn. I wish we had an untapped one and have a Disallow. But we might end up just cycling this here, actually. Oh, we did have an untapped land. Alright. Well, that's unfortunate. They have Glory Bringers in here, and we couldn't deal with it. So now we lose Jace, but we get to resolve a Sphinx, who beats the Glory Bringer quite easily. Unfortunate. But we can cycle this away, find more land, and anticipate even. We get to play the Sphinx now. Confiscation Coup. I do like that card a lot. But their Glorybringer can't deal with the Sphinx. They can't get him off the table. We have a 5/5 hexproof, and now all of our counters are uncounterable. So I think we are in a decent spot. They just fire a Gear Hulk. Yep. They get to draw a bunch of cards off Glimmer. We get to play a Kefnet and draw cards too, though. Not yet in a position to attack. Our opponent wins the race, so I'm going to leave the Sphinx back to deal with Glorybringer, and if we can get Kefnet up and running, he can just block the Gear Hulk then. So, is there anything we could anticipate into? Not really. I think we just want to get Kefnet down. And with 6 mana, we can actually anticipate and still use his ability. So I like that. Opponent can't even counter things like anticipate, which I like. So this is an interesting game. We're way down on cards, but I think Sphinx is just the best answer in the mirror here. Be interesting if our opponent has a Sphinx of their own. We are favored in the long run because of Kefnet, though. Confiscation Coup on Kefnet. Yeah, we gotta fight that. And fortunately, they can't do anything about it. I guess I could anticipate first. They can't counter us. Glimmer is good. Bruna is good. We could play Bruna. That locks out a lot of what they can do. Let's go for that. I really wish that I could have taken the Glimmer, but we might just be able to end the game here. with a resolved Bruna. They have to have Harness Lightning. Ooh, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, exactly 9 mana. Yeah, let's attack with Kefnet, or the Sphinx. Not in any danger really dying here. I don't see any way that they can get through this, really. We get to negate their Harness Lightning, and we've got a Gisela in play. And they didn't even do anything about melding that, so now all they can really do is like Gear Hulk, Commit to Memory, which we can uncounterably counter, and Confiscation Coup, which is quite strong, but they've already used 2 of them. We can counter the 3rd no matter what they do if they try and take our Gisela, so I think we are going to win this one. See what they try and cast here. If it's another Gear Hulk, what can they... Okay, Glimmer, I don't care, that's fine. Could have fought over it, but rather save this for something that actually matters. And now they have to dig for like a Jace to bounce. Confiscation Coup, although I doubt they're playing 3. More Glory Bringers, and we've got the Negate for most of those that actually do something. And our opponent's got very little time to actually deal with this. Let's see what they did. Bottom, top, so they found something. 4 mana, that could be the Commit to Memory. And we'll just negate that. Our opponent's probably just holding a handful of counter spells. Can't tell if that was a backhanded compliment about needing the luck, but opponent does concede. We get the win. I agree, based entirely off the Sphinx of the final word, pretty much. Our opponent not being able to counter Kefnet and Gisela on those pivotal turns made all the difference. So stay tuned for match 2, everyone. Thanks for watching.